It has just gone 2 o'clock, which is the time for us to start our meeting of the Standing Committee on Public Account of the Provincial Parliament of the Western Cape. Let me make use of this opportunity to welcome all of you that has attended, honorable members, as well as staff members that will be assisting us. Before we may start, honorable members, let me just, this is the committee meeting is going to be run in terms of the rules of the Standing Committee. I see the DG is in. Is the minister in already? Welcome the Department of Transport and Public Works with this entity led by the political head, which is the minister, Mr. Dalen Mitchell, and also the DG, Mrs. Kuch. Welcome, Minister. It's always good to have the executive actually present and accompanying their department when they come to the Standing Committee of Public Account. We highly appreciate that. On behalf of the committee, let me thank you for your availability together with the department. Honorable members, as you know now, this meeting is the meeting, the second part of the committee meeting, which is an open meeting. In other words, it is open to the public. It is also open via YouTube as well, and also members of the public who want to participate in the meeting are allowed, but after the members have actually deliberated and finished. So that means that after we have got the presentation from the Department of Ask Questions, we will open the space to members of the public who are present who will also want to ask a question. The meeting was advertised in 3 newspapers in 3 languages, which is English, Afrikaans, and isiXhosa. In the Berger for Afrikaans, in the Argus for English, as well as Vukani for isiXhosa. So members of the public are allowed to participate. Now, before I may start, let me make use of the opportunity to allow the minister if he's got any opening remarks that he'd like to make.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. I don't have any opening remarks other than to say thank you for this opportunity to defend the financials of the annual report for the year under review, and we look forward to a robust engagement. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. DG.
Chairperson, thank you very much. And from an opening remark perspective, I would like to take the opportunity to acknowledge that the department and along with GMT were able to maintain their clean audit record for the year under review. The department was able to achieve a 98.5% spend of its budget. And as I'm sure the committee is well aware, the year that we are now reporting on was one which came with a number of challenges and one which raised the need for us to respond in a number of ways. We went through a number of adjustments budget processes, understanding that there were potential risks from a revenue perspective that we needed to consider, as well as then acknowledging the work that the teams did through the various lockdown levels to try to ensure that we were able to respond and still give effect to the objectives of the organization. I did mention in this morning's meeting in my opening comment, but I think it is appropriate here as well to acknowledge that what has changed over the course of last year into the current year and beyond is the level of uncertainty with which we are having to work, and understand that decisions taken in one financial year can impact, given the nature of our business, particularly that of infrastructure, that has an impact that spans across multiple years. and a decision taken perhaps last year that needs to be carried through into the new financial year and beyond. So I do want to be able to say thank you to the committee for the opportunity to interact. And we also interacted in the year that has passed and up until now, that if there are any matters that we need to provide further information, we will obviously do so. And if I may just upfront also appreciate and acknowledge the effort that the team has put in the year that's passed and through to today to continue to respond and to try in their best ability meet the requirements of the citizens of the Western Cape. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, DG. Now, honorable members, we are going to allow opportunity to members to engage by means of asking questions or making comments to the report, and bearing in mind that in the report we are only dealing with section C, part C in other words, as well as part E of the reports, both in the annual report of the department as well as on the report of the entity. But then can I just get an indication of members who would like to ask questions or make comments or make input on the report, firstly on part C of the department as well as part C of the entity. We can deal with them at the same time. But just indicate where your question is going to be, either on GMT or on the department itself. I see there's a hand. Just go up and check. Okay, I see. That's Honorable Bartman. Honorable Bartman.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chair, firstly, I would like to congratulate the Minister and the Department for their clean audit. It's been a COVID year, and this is essentially a COVID annual report that's sitting in front of us. And they've achieved quite a feat despite the infrastructure demands that have been on our province in this past year due to COVID. My question specifically, one relates to a matter in the audit report, and two in part C. So the first part is the auditor highlighted the fact that, from my understanding, is that the Human Settlements Department has a contract. It's with the Red Ants, and that they're allowing other departments to also join into that contract. And my understanding of those type of contracts is those are framework agreements in terms of the supply chain management processes, but it's not a framework agreement. So I just wanted to find out from the CFO how that happened, because usually you have to then ask permission to go into a framework agreement if one exists. But if one doesn't exist, then you can't. What colloquially, I guess, is known as piggyback onto another department's contract. And then on page 163 in part C, one of the strategic risks that have been identified is insufficient electricity supply. And we know we've gone through a hectic COVID year, but despite that, we've also gone through a hectic load shedding year. So private and public sector has essentially gotten a double whammy when it comes to the impact on economic development. And I just want to find out what specifically about insufficient electricity supply was the risk that was identified. How did load shedding affect the programs in the annual report for the past financial year? And what is the plan to manage this going forward? I think members and the chair would know even that as we sit here online, some of us have to decide where we're going to log on for our annual report meetings, because you might actually have load shedding in your area during a specific time. And that's a small example in comparison to some of the programs that the department run. And then on page 177, oh, sorry, this is just a general comment about the formatting of the report. I just wanted to know, is there a specific reason why the tables in the report are portrait to this year and not horizontal? I think that was probably just the decision regarding printing then. But those are all of my questions for Part C. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Any further questions from honorable members? If there are no questions, can we get a response from the department?
Chairperson, thank you very much. If I may just clarify, is it acceptable that I leave my camera off?
Yes, no problem.
Great, thank you very much. So if I may, I will ask the CFO to clarify Honourable Member Bartman's question regarding the human settlements procurement matters. But before she does so, the question around the electricity supply and the strategic risk. For our department, it is specifically listed given the impact that lands up occurring for office accommodation for which we are responsible. So given the fact that historically and when load shedding first started, our department put in place a program for implementation of generators across the buildings from an office accommodation perspective, and therefore has continued to focus and include that in an understanding that, as you say, if load shedding increases, it does put an additional pressure onto particularly our general infrastructure team regarding the provision of diesel, making sure that the generators are sufficiently maintained, and that there is a proper process in place in order to try to limit that impact. There's also been, and why it's important is from an electricity point of view, is our link with CEI in the Department of the Premier, because you need to make sure that server rooms and others are kept at an appropriate temperature. Otherwise, we'll end up with them overheating and causing other problems that then mean that equipment needs to be replaced. So it hasn't, let me say, in responding directly around the year under review, the load shedding, what load shedding may have occurred in the year that's passed, didn't really have any substantial impact. We were able to, based upon our plans that we'd already put in place, respond to that. The final part that I'd like to flag and why electricity supply is important is the link, particularly for the school programs, to the connections from Eskom for electricity supply in the Eskom supplied areas. So sometimes there is a delay as far as that's concerned. And it's important that we are able to try to build up the relationships with Eskom, with the relevant personnel, to try to ensure that those connections are made as quickly as possible for the schools as they are delivered. We do still have challenges in that regard, but it is something that we continue to work with Eskom about. I hope I've been able to give a sufficient response on that one. And then the point around the table being in landscape as opposed to portrait, apologies. Yes, I think it was just aimed at making the columns a little bit wider so that they were more readable, but no specific reason other than that. Chair, with your agreement, I'll hand over to the CFO to respond regarding the procurement and obedience matter.
Thank you. So on that, there are certain times that you would participate in a contract arranged by another organ of state or another department, and that mostly happens where more than one department shares the same mandate, but one department has already tested the open market and put out a contract in place. It doesn't necessarily have to be a framework agreement. It could be an ad hoc term contract for that matter, and it just has to allow other departments then to participate. in this particular contract. This is a mandate that only sits with the Department of Human Settlements. However, the services might be needed by other departments. In that instance, the service is rendered by DHS, the Department of Human Settlements, through its contractor, being the Red Ants in this scenario, and then an interdepartmental claim. In other words, a claim back of the money, of the expenditure that was incurred from the relevant department. So that is what happens in this particular case, simply because other departments can't go out on a tender for this thing. It is a DHS mandate. Should they go out on such a tender, it would be a unauthorized expenditure, and therefore it is not allowed. Thank you, HOD.
Thank you, Chair. I trust we've covered the questions.
How much money was involved with the Red Ants? This contract, how much money was it, CFO or TG? Anyone can answer.
Through you, Chair. This is obviously within the Department of Human Settlements, so I do not know what the quantum is from the Department of Human Settlements.
No, the way I understand it, the Department of Transport and Public Works paid human settlement. Is that correct, CFO? For the services they render to the department?
Certainly, Chair. We'll have to draw that information. We don't have it at hand for you.
Okay. No problem. Honorable Partman.
Thank you, Chair. On the contract with human settlements, I do completely understand that a department can go onto another contract of another department. I'm not disputing that. I'm also not disputing that a service was needed and needed to be delivered and was delivered. My question has really got nothing to do with the service delivery in the contract. It's more of an accounting and financial question. I just want to, because is a term contract not supposed to also come from an overarching framework agreement? You're supposed to have your framework agreement. You have to have a process to put that framework agreement in place. And then you usually have your term contracts that come from that framework agreement based on pre-existing conditions. And I do know about transversal contracts. I do know that, for example, Transport and Public Works becomes a principal administrator in certain goods and services and infrastructure that are procured by the province, and human settlements have a specific mandate. And for example, I know when it comes to, I think it's consultancy or something like that, in the Premier, automatically that department has to be like the main stakeholder. And in some cases, Provincial Treasury is the main stakeholder if it's goods and services, for example, it doesn't fall anywhere else. So I'm not disputing any of that. I'm just trying to understand why this contract was not a framework agreement, and then you piggyback onto that framework agreement, which is definitely allowed. In what procurement methodology was used for the term contract? And I could be completely wrong. There might be something there that I'm completely missing and don't know about, but I just need some extra information on how this particular one operates. And maybe there's something I'm supposed to be asking for human settlements, but the HOD and CFO can just please direct me. Thanks.
As Chair, may we reply?
Yes, DG.
Thank you. CFO?
Thanks, Chair. So maybe I must just ask a clarification question because I did try and respond on the framework agreement, but I will do so again. I just need a clarification. What is, when you say it's more about the accounting, what is it, or what is your understanding of the framework contract? Because in DTPW, a framework contract in construction procurement means what we are going to do is we are going to put out this framework where we don't have actual quantities available at the time that we put out the tender, nor do we have the specified work. What we do have is we do have the nature of the work. We have the areas. We are going to award this to multiple contractors at the same time, and we are going to divide it into the regions. So contractors are awarded per region. The contract is limited in terms of the nature of the work, and then the time frame, which is normally a period of 3 years. So when you ask the question about why isn't this a framework contract, can I just understand what you mean by why isn't it a framework contract so that I can then respond appropriately? Thank you, Chair.
Honorable Parman.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to know if I could just clarify. No, I'm asking this because it came up in the Auditor General's report, and I completely agree with everything that the CFO is saying in terms of how such a procurement happens and what it's for. It's that I'm completely in agreement with. But the reason it came up in the Auditor General's report and why it was presented to us was that this is allowed, but it didn't follow the procedure that it should have followed in order for it to be allowed. And that's what I mean when I say my question is more an accounting issue, more like why this particular methodology. It's because it's got nothing really to do with whether or not the service been delivered. It's got to do with why was this procedure followed and not the one that the Auditor General is now obviously indicating that should have been followed. So I'm not disputing what it's for. I'm not disputing how framework agreements happen. I completely agree with that procedure and term contracts and infrastructure. I completely agree with all of that. I just want to know why this particular procurement method. Thank you.
CFO.
Thank you, Chair. So one, it is weird if the AG is prescribing a procurement method, because the procurement method entirely depends on the nature of the service, the availability in the market of service providers, and a number of other factors. But why the Department of Human Settlement chose this procurement methodology is actually a question that should be directed at the Department of Human Settlements. That would be based on their needs analysis and their market analysis that would bring them to a conclusion on what procurement methodology should be applied. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. CFO, during the briefing with the AG, of which the AG is here as well, they can also comment if they wish to do so. It was indicated that, I think it was paragraph 5.4, red ends and security relocation and eviction services. But then I leave the rest, but then there's A says that the acquisition of goods and services, and it goes on to say that such participation and reinvestment will not comply with the requirements of DR 16A 3.1A. Effectively, the department receives services from the service provider without following a procurement process. Is that maybe not clear enough, CFO, or do you think is the AG got it wrong? CFO?
Thank you, Chair. So,
No, it's fine. The CFO can go for it. Thank you, Chair.
So for the department, Chair, what is happening here is it was in the department's management report, it was actually raised as an emerging risk. The AG never took this up with the department or asked the department any question relating to this. This only came out in the management report as an emerging risk. Notwithstanding that, if you look at 16A31 particularly, we're going to have to go analyze what does it say, what does it require. If you talk about development of an effective and efficient supply chain management system in his or her institution, our supply chain system actually provides for participation in other people's contract. It also provides for interdepartmental claims where it is not the mandate of the Department of Transport and Public Works. And therefore, this hasn't been tested or audited or a question posed to the department to which the department could then reply to the Auditor General. This was basically a statement put into the management report at the end of the audit. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, CFO. AG? I see.
Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you, Chairperson. Yes. Chairperson, I just would like to respond to one or two matters relating to the procurement process. I think for the CFO made a comment around the AG prescribing to departments. Now, the AG is not an entity that can prescribe to departments, and it didn't prescribe to the Department of Human Settlements about the processes that needs to be followed when it is to procure services and goods. That process is entirely in the hands of the accounting officer of that department and department's officials. So we're not prescribing in terms of to departments in terms of the procurement processes that they need to follow. That is espoused in the procurement regulations, the Treasury regulations that's been put out by the National Treasury. What we are doing as an Auditor General Office is we read those regulations and we audit or inspect or test or whatever you would want to call it, or confirm that departments in fact followed the proper procurement processes that is prescribed by the National Treasury to procure goods and services. And so when the Auditor General then comes up with a finding, it means that either there's a shortcoming in the procurement process that's been followed for a particular contract, and the department maybe didn't prescribe to the the prescripts of the National Treasury. And it is in this particular matter a question where the Human Settlements Department extended, as previously explained to the committee, a contract to provide services to other departments and getting reimbursed for those services without following a proper procurement process. There are prescripts within the guidelines that's put out with National Treasury and the regulations as to how framework agreements should be procured, how the procurement process that should be followed with regards to that, and how departments should participate in that procurement framework agreement when they procure. And if departments don't follow that prescripts, then the Auditor General will raise a finding or an emerging risk to indicate that there's a potential risk here that the proper procurement process is not followed, and it normally results in irregular expenditure and then the investigation process that has to be followed in terms of either condoning or writing off the irregular expenditure, Chairperson. So I just thought that I want to respond in relation to the comments made in relation to the AG prescribing to departments. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much, AG. DG.
Thank you, CFO.
Thank you, Chair. Again, if we look at the National Treasury regulation quoted, it is absolutely true that the accounting officer may participate in a contract arranged by another organ of state. It is also so that where the department doesn't have such a mandate, but another department has a mandate like that, that nothing prevents the accounting officer as part of her system or his system to go to the other accounting officer to ask for that service to be rendered. So this department will never put out a service itself for the nature of that kind of service, which is the service rendered by this particular contractor, the Red Ends. I was responding, Chair, and the comment that I made was directly in relation to a statement made and a question asked by Member Partman. Thirdly, the AG again responded to frameworks. This has nothing to do with frameworks. Frameworks is about one specific procurement methodology. It could be anything. It could be if I put out a limited bid that joins the Department of Education, the Department of Human Settlement, and the Department of Transport and Public Works, because my market analysis shows there's only one contractor that could render a particular service, then that would be the methodology that I follow, and that would be the departments that would participate. So again, we mustn't conflate matters to bring together a framework and the requirements or prerequisites for participation in a framework with that for the participation in other contracts. Again, I just want to raise that the AG at no point asked the DTPW a question pertaining to the red ends so that there is any veracity to a statement made that says that there is even an inference of an irregularity as far as this particular contract is concerned. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, CFO. Honorable Batman, you want to make a follow-up?
Yes, please. Thank you, Chair. I'll keep some of my other questions for human settlements rather, but there is one thing I would like to know. Did the original procurement then bind Transport and Public Works when it sent out the advertisement or the specifications or put out the contract originally? Thanks.
Did you, CFO?
Thank you, Chair. No, it didn't. It wouldn't, because this falls squarely only within the mandate of the Department of Human Settlements, although it's a service that they render for the entire provincial government.
Thank you very much, CFO. Any further questions, honorable members, on C of both the department and the entity? If there are no further questions on C, can we move then to sections E of both the department as well as the entity? Any questions, honorable members, on part E or section E of the report of the department, annual report of the department as well as that of the entity? If there are no questions from honorable members, Honorable Batman.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, on page 306, it spoke to compliance with local content. And I just wanted to find out what specifically was it about, because the only thing that's written there mostly is about steel products and the particular regulation. But if we can just get some more clarity on what that particularly was, what was the problem with the compliance issue? Thanks.
DG, CFO.
Chair, we're just checking our records. It was in relation to irregular expenditure from the previous financial year that was then condoned in this year in question. And we're just trying to get the details for you, Chair, as far as the aspect. I know it was in relation to the preferential procurement regulations, 85 of 2017, but we're just trying to get, Chair, our records for the actual detail of that particular irregularity. Would you mind if you give me a moment or two? I'm just getting through my pieces of paper and I'd be able to respond if there are any other questions in the meantime while we get that information for you.
Okay, no problem. Are there any other questions, honorable members? If there are not, just from my side, honorable members, just want to go through my electronic copy because I don't have a hard copy. My question actually starts from 224 and it's really generally goes even up to and also relates to 246 as well as to 260. is regarding on 224. There is a set of consultants that are listed there, and I think it's different amount, but I just want to get to the page. If you go to 224. It's appointment of consultant. Yeah, there are actually couple of them. I think there's an amount of 9 million on the use of consultants on 224. Yes, it's on 224. There's 3 sets actually of appointments. The one is for 1.9, the other one is for 431, and the other one is 9,729 million. If you look at it, it's actually just over 10 million for use of consultants there. Just, of course, it might be good maybe if just the department can just indicate as to what type of services were conducted by those consultants. And looking at a department like this one, as efficient and as effective as it is, was there no way some of this work could have been done internally? That's my first question on that. Then if we go to 246, to go to 246. 246 again is quite an astronomical figure of 117 according to, let me just get to 246. There is an amount of consultant business and advisory services, 117,333 million. That's quite a big figure. And also, if you go to 260 as well, there's also another amount of 188 million. So these figures seem so big and huge. Actually, it will be good that if you can just be taken through as to what were the services that were actually required on both those sets of consultants that have actually asked for, and was there no way that maybe some internal, this work could have been done internally? That's just my question from my side.
Chair, thank you very much. So the local content, we've got the details, and the CFO will provide that information when I've concluded. Your questions on page 224, which are part D of the report. The first thing, let me indicate, is when we check around the appointment of consultants, is whether, and particularly these ones that are outlined, the work can be done internally or not. So let me just give you that confirmation. The nature of the work that is undertaken is outlined in the sort of middle column of that table that goes across the 2 pages. And it's particularly on the back of either expertise that the department does not have or requires for a particular purpose and certain products or outputs and for a certain period of time. So you will see there the amount where you highlighted the large amount, the third line on page 224, that is for a professional team and support around the water business continuity plan. So the committee would recall, as a result of the drought, the Western Cape government, and led by TPW within a water continuity perspective, needed to put systems in place and work in place to be able to try to limit the potential impact of a drought or limited water supply. So as a result, That is, for example, consultants that assist us with those processes, with the oversight, the geohydrologists and others, which are expertise which this department doesn't have and would not have on an ongoing basis. We don't have posts for that type of expertise, and therefore that is outsourced. Others that you see listed there are for empowerment impact assessments that we've shared previously, certainly with our own standing committee, and in the past, that as we undertake infrastructure projects, in order to include in the tender documentation the empowerment targets, we bring in external expertise to do an assessment of the area that the project is going to be undertaken in, look at what the opportunities are potentially for local suppliers, work opportunities, the kind of skills that are available within the community, and through that process identify targets that are put into the tenders. And then they also need to be monitored as far as the implementation is concerned. And we bring in, because we don't have sufficient personnel to do that within the EPWP team, we bring in external support that you see articulated in table 225, the table on page 224 and 225. The other amounts that you pick up in the appropriation statements are when you say consultants, business and advisory services, you'd understand that a fair amount of the work of the department, when you're thinking about professional fees for the design of buildings, of work that needs to be put out, whether it's roads and others, that gets captured and considered there. You also have within the environment and the transport operations space, support to the team around, particularly in the year that's passed, our COVID responses, the Red Dot program that you're aware of, the Blue Dot program, and there are professional teams that assist us in that particular work. And that's what gets captured within the spend, what's articulated in those appropriation statements, Chair. If you're comfortable, I'll ask the CFO just to pick up on the local content matter.
Thank you, Chair. So what it was about, it was about the provision of safety protective clothing, not for COVID, but in general, infrastructure safety protective clothing. The amount is 117,881.44 rand. And what this was about is that DTPW awarded this contract to a supplier who indicated that they bought the clothing items from a local supplier, but the local supplier in turn imported all of their goods. So therefore, the issue was that the supplier claimed the 100% because they bought it from a local supplier, but the local supplier in fact imported the goods, and it was therefore deemed by the AG to be irregular expenditure for that particular items. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, CFO. DG, if I get you correctly, the reason I also I was just trying to make reference to 224. I know it was on section D, but it has to do with consultants. But we are trying to say that for projects like Blue Dot and Red Dot, we are using consultant. It's not an internal work that is being done by our own officials. You are actually using a private professional outside of our employ to conduct that kind of work.
Through you, Chair. So what I'm trying to indicate is that within the team, within the department, there are at times for some projects specialist expertise that is required. And therefore, in packaging and supporting our staff, there is then a professional team that is appointed to assist them. So just as you have the professionals, architects and engineers and so on that assist the infrastructure teams with the design and delivery of work there, we also have within the transport operations space, within the EPWP space and so on, and in other parts of public works, for example, we have consultants that are utilized For supporting our team, we also bring in, for example, IT specialists for the hub that you're well aware of with the data and the technology and the systems there. We also, within this amount that you see covered pay, for example, consultants that are classified here for mediation services with the minibus taxi industry and others. So from an accounting perspective, all of those types of services and the expenditure is then brought together under that single item that you see on the appropriation statement.
So maybe probably it might be kind of worded wrongly then if it says consultant. It might basically be sometimes projects instead of it being consultant, really like pure consultants in the true sense of the word.
Absolutely, Chair. Any consultant for us works on a project with defined and required deliverables and work. It's not just a general approach. Unfortunately, that is the classification articulated in terms of the standard chart of accounts. From what I can recall, I'm not an accountant, but I think that that's the correct terminology.
Yes.
And as a result, that's where the expenditure is reported.
Thank you very much, DG. Honorable members, are there any further questions? Going once, going twice. It's now gone. I think I just want to then to check if from the, if I may make use of this opportunity then to thank the Minister, Honorable Minister. Are you still in? Are there any remarks in us wanting to close as we driving towards closure?
Thank you very much, Chair. No, nothing from my side other than thank you very much to the committee for the opportunity to engage with regards to the financials for the previous financial year. It will be remiss of me not to thank the HOD and the team for the work that has gone in the year under very, very difficult circumstances and conditions. So on behalf from my side, thank you very much. And then lastly, to my predecessor for laying a solid foundation for the success that has been achieved in the financial year. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks very much, Honorable Minister. DG?
Chair, thank you. I must also actually just appreciate your giving me a promotion by calling me DG. I really do appreciate that. And I'm saying it a little tongue in cheek, so thank you for the promotion. We'll let the Premier know that he's got a new DG in the province. But from my side, if I may say thank you very much to the committee, to use the chair for the manner in which we've been able to interact today. I really do appreciate it. And I do also want to acknowledge that as a committee, you ask us questions in order to understand and gather a greater level of seeing what's going on within the department. And if there are the kind of areas to focus on, we do know that you're going to pick those up and ask us those particular questions. Apologies in our delay in one or two of the answers, but I do trust that you also are aware that it takes us a bit of time to pull the different pieces together. From my side to, again, to say thank you very much to the overall team of this department and also to everybody that supports us. The work that we do, and as we've just explained, doesn't happen solely because of the 2,500 people in this department. It also happens as a result of all the suppliers, all of the service providers and others that assist us every step of the way. And we wouldn't be able to achieve what we have if it wasn't for them. So I also need to acknowledge the external role players, the municipalities and others for their support. And then just finally to the 2,500 strong team of Transport and Public Works. The year that's passed has been a difficult one. I don't think it's necessarily going to get any easier, but I do wish to appreciate and publicly acknowledge everybody for the work that they have done. And Chair, thank you so much for that opportunity.
Thank you very much. The audit committee, chair of the audit committee, are there any remarks that you'd like to make?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, this is my last meeting with SCOPA for the Department of Transport and Public Works. And as mentioned before, I am and was very honored to be the chair of this committee for the past 3 years. And I would like to wish the HOD and the new MEC all the best for the future. I know they are very hardworking people, and I know what they can achieve with their team. And I would like to wish the new audit committee and the new chair also all the best going forward. And thank you very much for the opportunity to just voice my thanks to everybody, and go well.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chairperson. AG? Any remarks you would like to make?
No, thank you, Chairperson, once again, and to the honourable members for the opportunity that we've been granted to interact with this committee, presenting the outcomes for the Department of Public Works and Transport, Western Cape. We really appreciate the opportunity and the interaction with the department and with this committee and as well as the department. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, AG. Once again, then, ladies and gentlemen, I just want to check, as I've indicated in the beginning, that this is also an open meeting that is open to the public, where we will allow members of the public who would like to ask questions. Mr. Davids, are there any members of the public who are present or who have indicated that they would like to ask questions?
Chairperson, good afternoon. There was no indication from the members of the public to engage in this meeting today, Chair.
Thank you very much. Then let me make use of the opportunity once again, honorable members, ladies and gentlemen, to thank the department for being available to come and present as led by the minister. Thank you once again, Minister and HOD. Let me correct myself this time. Thank you very much for always being available. We are not always going to ask comfortable questions, because sometimes accountability is not about making anybody comfortable. There will be those times where some question will appear as if they are uncomfortable. But as I normally say, that they are in no way asked in order to catch you or trying to make you look bad. We're just trying as best as we can to fulfill our role and responsibility of holding the executive accountable, and also making sure that there is good governance in the provincial parliament and in the provincial legislature as a whole. Thank you very much, Minister, the department as well as to the audit committee and to the AG. You may be excused now, because they will continue with the business of the committee to finalize other things of the committee. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. You may be excused.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
Chairperson.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you, Chairperson. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Chair. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yeah, only 9 of us left now. Honorable members, I just want to check whether are there any resolutions that you'd like to take. I don't know sometimes how do we deal with this issue when you will have the AG and the officials not seeing eye to eye in a meeting. You know, it sometimes on a matter that you will suppose that they will be actually agreeing on, but it just happened. It's one of those things that as human beings, we are not always going to be seeing eye to eye. Are there any resolution, honorable member, that you would like to propose? Honorable Mackenzie.
Thank you. Well, I actually think it's good if the AG and departments don't always agree. I mean, that is the purpose. You have a Chapter 9 institution to hold executive also to account. But more importantly, I think to properly get an understanding of this framework, because this is not the first time it's going to happen. So that one don't go to meetings in the future. It seems like one is attacking the department or the AG is attacking the department. So one's get a clear understanding in the future as to how this is supposed to work. What is the baseline? One understand that many government departments do buy services and then other departments use that services, whether it's for economy of scale or just for them rendering that service. But I think for future purposes, one perhaps get a clear explanation, either from any department who's an expert in this or from the AG on this particular matter, so that we know how it's supposed to work going further in the future, and that the explanations given today is the baseline. So that because I also I've served in SCOPA for several years, and there's always a different interpretation from depending who the department is and how this is supposed to work. So I think just from my side, Chairperson, if you and the other members agree that whoever is the expert on this can just give SCOPA in the future some explanation of how is this supposed to work. These four framework agreements or the transversal contracts, if you like. I think so some of them have many names, but I think that'll help all of us in the future. Thank you.
I should think maybe a department that might give some kind of guidance and maybe assist in even identifying expert in that will be Treasury.
I agree. I agree.
So if we can just maybe take a resolution to that effect, that we get this guideline from Treasury and maybe also some presentation as well from them, so that because you could see the CFO, she's standing by her ground. On the other hand as well, the AG is also standing, they are standing their ground. So I think in this instance, I think the Treasury Department might be of assistance.
Yes, Chairperson, and I can just quickly say they can also give us some standard sample agreements, like this is what's supposed to happen. This is for security server. This is the trend. This is for cleaning servers. Just bring us some standard samples that will also help our understanding.
Yeah, that would be in relation to the issue raised by the AG on the issue of human settlements and the agreement on the red dots. No, that's fine. Honorable Bartman.
Thank you, Chair. And I just want to say that I support that, and I think that the CFO maybe misunderstood my question a little bit, and I didn't want to argue online. But essentially, what I just wanted to understand was, how does this procurement methodology work? I'm not saying that you can't use it. I'm just trying to understand the buts and nuts of it. Thanks.
Thanks. Then the other issue, honorable members, man, you know, the issue of these consultants, if you make that sum 117 and 118, obviously there are others as well. Maybe it might be good if we can just get some detail as to, because we see when I was asking further from the HOD, it might be actually wrongly worded. Maybe if we can just get a breakdown of these actual expenditures that are listed as consultant, because they are listed as consultant, but obviously when it's listed like that, you're like, it's outside services and it's consultant. When I add that figure, it adds up to 305 million per annum for consultants, you know. So maybe if we may just request Mr. Davis that maybe just a breakdown of those two amounts as to what were the services that were actually rendered on those. Any other proposal for resolution, honorable members? If there is nothing, honorable members, let me make use of the opportunity to once again thank you for availing yourself. It's a Friday afternoon. You were able to be here. I know some of you, we've been together since this morning from the Transport and Public Works Committee. Thank you very much for always being there. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Chair, and congratulations on the way in which you led this.
Thank you.